You ever get that feeling late at night when the world is quiet and you're scrolling through your phone that you're the only one awake? That's when the memories come back to me. Not the loud, obvious ones, but the quiet moments, the ones that slip in through the cracks. That's when I think about her. I don't expect you to understand. Most people don't. They move on, they forget, they let the past fade into the background like an old photograph left out in the sun. But I remember everything. I remember the way she laughed, the way she used to look at me when we were kids, like I was the only person in the world who really mattered. I remember the promises we made, the secrets we shared. I remember the day she moved away and how the world seemed a little less bright after that. For years, I tried to let it go. I told myself it was just childhood, just nostalgia, just a trick of the mind. But then one night, I found her. It was almost an accident. I was scrolling through an old friend's profile, and there she was, smiling in a group photo, older but still unmistakable. My heart started pounding in my chest. I clicked on her name, and suddenly it was like I was 12 years old again. She had a new life now. A husband, a kid, a house in the suburbs. She posted pictures of birthday parties, family vacations, Sunday brunches. She looked happy. She looked like she'd forgotten all about me. That's when it started. At first, I just looked. I told myself it was harmless, just curiosity. I wanted to see what kind of person she'd become, what kind of life she was living. But the more I saw, the more I realized how little I knew her now. She had new friends, new routines, new inside jokes. I wasn't part of her world anymore. I was just a ghost, watching from the outside. I started checking her profile every day. I memorized her schedule, the places she liked to go, the people she spent time with. I noticed patterns, little details that most people would miss. She always posted her morning coffee at the same cafe, always tagged the same friend in her photos. I started to feel like I knew her better than anyone else, better than her husband even. Sometimes I'd leave a comment, something innocuous, just to see if she'd notice. She never replied. She never even liked my comments. It was like I didn't exist. That hurt more than I expected. I started to wonder if she even remembered me at all. I created a new account, one she wouldn't recognize. I sent her a friend request, and to my surprise, she accepted. Suddenly, I had access to everything. Her private photos, her stories, her posts from years ago. I spent hours scrolling through her life, piecing together the years we'd missed. I found old pictures of us buried deep in her albums, and for a moment, I felt a strange kind of satisfaction. She hadn't deleted me. I was still there, somewhere in her past. But the more I saw, the more I wanted. I started to feel like I deserved to be part of her life again. After all, we had history. We had a connection that went deeper than anything she had with these new people. I started to imagine what it would be like if we ran into each other, if she recognized me, if she remembered everything we'd shared. I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was waiting for me to come back. That's when things started to get complicated. I started to test the boundaries. I'd show up at the cafe she liked, always sitting in the corner, pretending to read or scroll through my phone. I never approached her. I just watched, memorizing the way she moved, the way she smiled at the barista, the way she always ordered the same thing. I told myself it was just curiosity, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. I wanted to feel close to her again, even if she didn't know I was there. Sometimes I'd follow her when she left, keeping a safe distance, blending in with the crowd. I learned her routines, her favorite grocery store, the park where she took her kid on weekends. I started to feel like I was part of her life again, even if it was only from the shadows. But the more I watched, the more I realized how much she'd changed. She was confident now, self-assured in a way she never was as a kid. She laughed easily, talked to strangers, seemed at home in the world. I started to resent the people around her, the ones who got to share her life while I was left on the outside. I started to wonder if she ever thought about me at all. One night I saw her post a photo from a local event. I recognized the place immediately. It was only a few blocks from my apartment. I felt a surge of excitement, like fate was giving me a sign. I decided to go, just to see her in person, to remind myself that she was real. The event was crowded, noisy, full of people laughing and talking. I spotted her almost immediately, standing with her husband, her hand resting lightly on his arm. She looked happy. I watched from a distance, my heart pounding, trying to work up the courage to say something, anything. But every time I took a step forward, I froze. What would I even say? Hey, remember me? Your old friend who's been watching you from afar? The thought made me feel sick. I left before the event was over, walking home in the dark, my mind racing. I started to realize how far I'd gone, how much of my life I'd devoted to someone who barely remembered I existed. But I couldn't stop. I told myself I just needed one moment, one conversation, and everything would make sense again. That night, I sent her a message from my fake account. Just a simple question about the event, something casual. She replied, polite but distant. I tried to keep the conversation going, but she never gave me more than a few words. I could feel her pulling away, even through the screen. That's when the dreams started. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I'd seen her face in the window, heard her voice calling my name. I started to lose track of time, spending hours scrolling through her photos, reading old messages, replaying memories in my head. My apartment grew darker, messier, as if the outside world was fading away. I started to wonder if I was losing my mind. The days started to blur together. I stopped going out, stopped answering calls from the few people who still bothered to check in. My world shrank to the size of a screen, her life playing out in front of me like a movie I couldn't pause. I told myself I was just waiting for the right moment, the perfect opportunity to remind her who I was, to make her see me again. But the truth was, I was afraid of what she'd say, afraid of what I'd become. Sometimes I'd catch my own reflection in the dark window and barely recognize myself. I looked tired, older, like someone who'd been living in the shadows for too long. One evening, as I scrolled through her latest photos, I noticed something strange. A new post, but this time the caption was different. It was a warning, a message to someone who'd been watching from afar. She didn't mention my name, but I knew it was meant for me. My heart pounded as I read her words over and over, realizing she'd noticed the patterns, the comments, the way I always seemed to know where she'd been. Panic set in. I deleted the fake accounts, erased every message, every trace I could find. But it was too late. The next day, I saw a police car parked outside my building. I watched from behind the curtains as two officers spoke to my landlord, their faces serious. I knew in that moment that everything was over. I spent the next few days in a haze, waiting for the knock on the door that never came. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating, just sat in the dark, replaying every moment, every choice that had led me here. I realized I'd built my own prison, brick by brick, with every memory I refused to let go. Eventually, the world moved on without me. She blocked me on every platform, locked down her profiles, changed her routines. I became invisible again, but this time it wasn't by choice. I was left alone with my thoughts, haunted by the life I could never have, the friendship I'd twisted into something unrecognizable. Sometimes late at night, I still scroll through old photos, searching for a glimpse of the person I used to be. But all I see is a stranger, someone lost in the past, unable to move forward. That's my punishment, I suppose. Not prison, not handcuffs, but isolation. A life spent watching from the outside, never able to go back, never able to be seen. If you're listening to this, maybe you think I'm a monster. Maybe you're right. But monsters aren't born in the dark. Sometimes they're made in the quiet spaces between memories, in the places where loneliness grows. I thought I could remind her of who I was. Instead, I reminded myself of everything I'd lost. And now, all I have left is the silence.